Hi everyone, this is Tuplex. Welcome back. So I'm back up here at the nuclear power plant, and I fed some stuff in here so that we can start making some more fuel cells to take over to the reactors. We are currently running 100% on nuclear power at a very low level so far. But I did turn off the steam, and the way that I turned it off is by disconnecting the water up here. I just disconnected the water pipes. All right, so steam power is not running now. We're not using any of the coal for that. Actually, I think the only coal we're using right now is going to smelting. No, actually it's not. We're not using any coal. Yeah, but we are using nuclear fuel cells, which is why I wanted to get some more crafted so that we've got enough to keep things running for a while. So in today's episode, I would like to set up a fuel control circuit so that we don't use nuclear fuel unnecessarily, since we do have a rather limited quantity available. So we can see now that the reactors are up to 999 degrees. The heat pipe drops down to 967 by the time it gets to the end, but we've got plenty of stuff there. And then we can see our steam tanks are, well, it says 97K, but remember that's only one tank and we have 4. So we have almost 400,000 units of steam saved up. So one of the things that I want to do is create a few... Oh, what happened to my iron? Okay, I left all my iron back there where the fuel cells are. Let me go grab it. I need some iron plates so that I can craft some Nixie tubes and some combinators and things like that. All right, so I'm going to make... I really only need 2 Nixie tubes, and then I've got more for combinators and stuff. All right, and we're doing good on fuel. Got solid fuel now for the plane, so... Okay, so I'm going to put a couple of Nixie tubes up here. This is going to give us, just so I have an indicator of how much steam we have. Actually, let me use a substation to power all this. That looks good. Okay, or actually, I don't want to connect that, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an arithmetic combinator, or arithmetic combinator. I'm not sure which is the correct usage. So I'm going to take that steam signal. I just want this to display a percentage of how full my steam tanks are. So since one tank, we're monitoring one tank, it's got 97,000 in it. So if I divide the input by 1,000, then that'll give me a percentage in whole numbers. And then output as each. And then I want this to look for steam. Okay, so 97. So this tells me that my tanks are 97% full, which is good to know. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a decider combinator. And I'll make a couple of these. I'm going to flip this one around. And I'm going to take that same number. And I'm going to tell this that if steam is less than... See, this is where I'm going to decide when I want to insert fuel. Okay, so I'm thinking, let's say if it gets below 25%. All right, so if that steam number goes below 25, I'm going to output, and in this case, I'm just going to use a green signal with the value of 1. All right, so I'm going to look for that green signal as a sign that my steam is low. Okay, now and we can see right now that the input signal is 97 and there's no output because it's the output right now is null, you could say. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is I want to be able to figure out if I've already got fuel inserted in here or not. And for that, we're going to use a circuit that's called an SR latch. All right, and that's typically set up where if S is greater than R, then we're going to output a signal of S with the value of 1. Okay, so that's how you set up the combinator, and then you loop the input, or you loop the output back to the input. Okay, and then I'll show you how this works. This basically works as kind of like a simple memory cell. Okay, so right now there's nothing going on. There's no output signal. But if I give it an S signal, now you can see that the output is S. Okay, so the output is an S of 1. If I remove that signal, you can see that the output remains at 1 because, so that's why I say it acts as a memory. So as soon as you give it the appropriate signal, in this case it's an S, then you get the output of S equals 1, and it stays that way until it gets an R. Okay, because now S is 1, S is greater than R, which right now is 0. So it's going to continue to output that S of 1. And then the output S of 1 goes right back to the input. So then after that, it doesn't matter what the S signal is going into it from this combinator. All right, so now if I give it an R, now there's no output. Okay, the output is 0. And even after I clear that, it stays 0. So this is a way that you can give it a momentary signal and turn it on or off based on a momentary signal, and it'll hold that value until it gets another signal. And that's what the S and the R stand for: set and reset. Okay, so you set it with an S, and then you can reset it with an R. Okay, so we're going to use that circuit to remember if we've inserted fuel or not. All right, so first let me distribute those so we've got more in there. Okay, so how do we figure out if I have fuel in the reactors? Well, you can't hook up a circuit to the reactor, unfortunately. I think we should be able to, but they didn't make the game that way. So what we can do is we can monitor this inserter and watch it for when it puts one in. Okay. So I'm going to use, I guess I'll use a red wire. Okay, so I'm going to watch this. And basically I want this to be enabled when I want this inserter to be enabled when my steam is low and there's no fuel already inserted. Okay, so those are the two conditions that I'm going to be combining here. All right, so first thing we have to do is enable disable, and I'm going to have it enable when green is equal to 2. And you'll see why we do that in a minute. I also want to read hand contents, and we can read it with a pulse. Okay, so this red one is going to read contents, and it's going to put it in there. So when it picks up a fuel cell, it's going to get a signal of a fuel cell equal to 1. Oh, and the other thing we have to do is we have to override stack size and change the stack size to 1, because we only wanted to pick up one at a time. Okay, so now, since I want it to, yeah, you know what, actually, let me disconnect this. I want to set the value here when, okay, so this way we can figure out when fuel has been put in. Okay, but how do we know when it doesn't have any fuel in it anymore, when it's already used up? Well, the way we know that is that it's going to take out a spent fuel cell. So what we're going to do to set the condition that it needs more fuel, I'm going to tell it to look for, I'm going to put the set signal as a expended fuel cell. Okay. And the reset signal is going to be a regular fuel cell. Okay. And so I'm going to use, let's see, can I do this? Well, I'm going to use a green circuit on this one. Okay, so here I'm just going to say read. I don't want to enable or disable it. I just want to read hand contents with a pulse. Okay, so we just saw there it took a spent fuel cell out, and you can see that now it's set with that spent fuel cell signal. Okay, now in this case it's got more stuff, right? So what I can do is I can just take these fuel cells out. All right, so normally it would be like this because we haven't allowed this to put any more fuel in. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, so now this is saying that we have a spent fuel cell signal. That means fuel's been taken out. None has been put in yet. Okay. So I'm going to put another decider combinator. And I'm going to connect the output of this to the input of this. Okay, so the input signal is one spent fuel cell. So I'm going to tell this that when I have a spent fuel cell signal, okay, so greater than 0, I want it to output green equals 1. Okay, so this is outputting green equals 1. This is outputting nothing. All right, and then this is where it gets good. So I'm going to hook these two wires together. I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to tell this to enable when green equals 2. Okay, so this is only going to turn on if this is green and this is green. That'll give me 2 greens. Okay, so if steam is low and we just took out a spent fuel cell, or we took one out recently, right? We still have that signal and we'll continue to have it until we pick up another fuel cell. Then we're good to go. All right, so now I also need to connect to here. I need to connect the reset signal, which will be this inserter picking up a fuel cell. All right, so for that, I'll use a red wire just so we don't get things mixed up. Okay, and that should do it. So let me put these boxes back in range. All right, so I'll load that one. I'll load this one. Ah, okay. So here's, give me that. No, no, no. Okay, so the other thing I need to do is I need to connect this green control wire to all of the inserters that are inserting fuel. Okay, and then I'm going to copy the conditions, except the read hand contents, but everything else needs to be the same. So that way they'll all the fuel inserters will get the signal at the same time. Okay, so right now we have so much steam that we're not going to be putting any fuel in for quite a while. All right, that one's got no fuel. That one's got no fuel. We can see that the temperature is 997. And by the way, even after we run low on steam, this will continue to run on the heat that is stored up in all this stuff until it drops down to 500 or below 500, and then it'll stop making steam. So even if the steam ran out, we would continue, the steam in the tanks, we would continue to make more steam just based on the heat that we have built up. And you can see the temperature of the reactors slowly dropping. And there's no neighbor bonus when there's no fuel inserted, but that doesn't matter if it's not burning anything. Okay, so we could test this by tricking it to think that we don't have enough steam, just so we can make sure it works. Okay, we want to make sure it only inserts one. All right, so right now we see that the steam is at 97,000. We want this to work when it's less than 25,000. So if I put in a steam value of minus 75,000, there it goes, right? So it inserted one fuel cell only. And it'll stay like that until we take out the spent fuel cell, at which point it'll set the latch and send another green signal. Okay, so now we can see that we have one green signal just based on this low steam level, which is artificially low right now. Okay, and the other thing that I'll do is I'm going to put a light here. And I'll tell it to use colors, and I'll tell it to turn on with anything greater than 0. Okay, so that way we can use this light as an indicator whether it's whether the steam is in the range that we're going to want more fuel or not. So that's what the green means. Okay, so we'll have to wait a little bit for this fuel to get used up before we can see this work and watch it insert another one. Or I could simulate it by just putting a spent fuel cell right there so it gets taken out. Why don't we do that? Oops. There we go. All right, so let's pretend that we just took out, no. Let's pretend that we just took out a spent fuel cell. Okay, so I'm going to drop it there in the output of the reactor. Right? And then it puts in another fuel cell, and then it goes back to waiting. All right, now we don't need those in there because we've already got fuel cells loaded. Okay. So that is pretty much it. Yeah, so I'm going to reset. I'm going to remove this so our steam level goes back up. We can see that that light turned off, right? So that means that we're not ready to add more fuel. I'll put that there in the middle. Okay, so that's all that there is to it. And then now for the removal, we only need to connect to one inserter on the removal because they're all going to take it out at the same time since we're inserting at the same time on all the reactors. So we only really need to watch one for the reset signal. But we do need to connect all the fuel insertion inserters to this control signal so that they know when to do their thing. And when we add more reactors on this side, we'll bring that green wire over to that side as well. Okay, and then eventually we'll be replacing these chests with Logistic Network, and then we can use bots to bring the cells and to take out the empties, which I'm going to do right now. Until then, we'll just load them manually. All right, see there's another one, and now there's no fuel, and it'll be quite a while before we add any fuel to the system here. We're not using very much power right now. Now this is a simpler version than what I had done previously. In some of my previous series, I had a more complicated setup with more combinators and stuff, but this is a little bit simpler than what I had before. And if you're going to be using this for the first time, then I would recommend using this instead. And there's probably even a way to get rid of the this one. You know, if I could figure out a way to use some other signal besides the green, I might be able to get rid of one or two more combinators. But I think this is simple enough, and should be fairly easy to understand by looking at it, which to me is important. Okay, so now that we have nuclear power, I think we can start setting up an external smelting operation outside of the starter base, because we're going to have plenty of electricity. So let's go back to the main base, and I want to set up something to start making furnaces. And then here's something else I'm thinking about. I'm already making electric engines, and if I'm going to be making electric furnaces too, I might as well start making production science packs. You know, why wait? And all I need for military science packs is coal, iron, copper, and steel. So I think I'm going to tech up to military and production science packs here in the main base, even though I was planning just to stay at Blue Science for a while. I would like to start working towards logistic system. I mean, we need high tech too, so I'm not going to get that until we have high tech science packs being made outside. But we can get a lot of other useful stuff, including the explosive excavation that I talked about, so that we can create more water channels. Yeah, this one here, blasting charge. All right, so let's. So I would say before we even set up for making furnaces, let's set up some military science. All right, so I'm going to delete these. I don't need those anymore. So we'll add a recipe. And I don't need a lot of it. Here it is. All right, so let's just set this up for 45 per minute. That's half the rate of the other ones. This will just be enough to get us through a few of the technologies that we need. All right, so we'll need to make piercing rounds, we'll need to make grenades, and we'll need to make gun turrets. We'll need to make firearms, and we'll need to make gears. Okay, and then I need to set all these to the blue assemblers, since I don't have yellows yet. Okay. And then we just have to come up with a way to lay that out so that it's not a complete mess, and we get the science packs that we want. Okay, so we'll put that up here somewhere. That was a short plane ride. Let me add some more Roboport coverage over here. That way I'll continue to receive supplies from the bots while I'm over here working. Okay, so we'll put one right there. And then we'll put another one. Well, I'll put it right here. And that's going to need some electricity. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to ask my bots to bring me some stone brick so that I can add a path. Okay, so I want 8 spaces as I normally do. All right, so I'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so this will be where the first machine goes. Yep. Okay. So for the military science, we need to make grenades, piercing rounds, and gun turrets. So let's start with the piercing rounds. Now for that I need 1 machine making these bullets, and I need 2 making the piercing rounds. So we can set that up like this. We can put the regular magazines there and the piercing rounds on the outside. This goes 1 a second more or less, so we can feed that with regular inserters. Okay, so that's going to need iron, and then we need copper and steel. Alright, so let's make that iron, and then we'll bring copper and steel here. How much copper and steel? That's 3 seconds, 6. Yeah, so I think a yellow inserter is going to work on those. I'm going to press Shift L to make them long. I'm not going to carry red inserters around anymore. And then that's going to need 4 plates every second, so I'll put a fast inserter there. All right, so this is copper and steel. This one's iron. Let's get it set up. Okay, now I can get my path in place. I'm going to leave myself a lot of room there. Okay, let's do the copper and steel portion first. 2 belts at a time, please. Then 4. Go ahead and extend this stuff up. 3. There we go. That's a great tool. All right, so copper and steel. All right, so let me bring the steel here. Oh, I know what I can do. I have an idea. Let me move this up by 1 tile. Huh. Somehow I got a red belt put under the belt there. Okay. I'm fairly pleased with that. Okay, and then we need, and then we need iron right next to it, which now I'm going to have to make kind of ugly. Okay, I'm just going to use regular power poles for now. Maybe later I'll work on cleaning this up with with the substations. Okay, so now we've got the magazines. We could put grenades on the other side. Yeah, let's put grenades on the other side of this. We're going to need 4 of those. And that's just going to take iron plate and coal. All right, so we're going to be pulling in 15 items in 8 seconds. We can use yellow inserters for that. And I think we can do a yellow belt. Yeah, a single yellow belt coming in will be fine. So we need a combined belt of coal and iron. So let's set that up. Now coal we don't have on the main bus yet, so we'll have to do that. All right, and then I'll take one of those. I'll set the output priority over here so that it tries to reload this belt. Yeah, and I messed it up again. That needs to be a combined belt. All right, so let's let me get the coal brought up here. I know I had chosen a place for it. Okay, right there. That's where coal needs to go. So let's go down and get that going. I love this plane. I wish I would have found this mod a long time ago. Okay, well here's coal. That coal's for smelting. Okay, I could bring some coal up from down here. And just run it next to the stone there. Now this is going to be 10. Is that 10 per second or 10 per minute? I think it's, well, I don't know what it is. I know it's 10, but I don't know what the units are. So I might need, when I combine the coal and the iron, I might need to combine them onto a red belt rather than a yellow one. Okay. And then this is a little bit less than ideal. I should have done these in the opposite order. There we go. Okay, so now we have coal, and that's going to need to come up here. Right, so what I want is for that combined belt to come out here. Okay. Yeah, so we'll put that there. Actually, let's put that there. No, like that. That way I don't have to cut across all that traffic. Where's the coal, by the way? Here comes some of it. Now I just want to check, is this all... Okay. Yeah, this is coming from the mine preferentially, and then it'll draw from the train station in case that's not enough. Okay. And then we can run that across there, and then we put an underground belt there. Right. Like that. Too many misclicks. Nope, don't need that. All right, so let's do that, and then we'll put a substation in the middle. There we go. That way we can run the whole thing with a substation. Okay, and then those will put the grenades on the opposite side of the belt, so we'll have a combined belt with grenades and ammo. These take 8 seconds each to craft, or with the crafting speed around 10 or 11 seconds. Okay, so there we go. Looks like the yellow belt is fast enough. Yeah, let's check items per second. Whoops. Okay, yeah, it's only 3.75 per second, so that's no problem for half of a yellow belt. Okay, so we are off to a good start there. But we are out of time, so in the next episode, we'll finish up military science, and then we'll do production science, and then when I do the production science, I will scale up the production of electric furnaces to be double what we need for the science packs. So that way we'll make plenty of extra furnaces for setting up some offsite smelting. And then we can start to scale up the base. We'll need iron plates, copper plates, steel plates. And then once I have that, I can set up circuit production. Once I have that, I can set up red and green, science production, all that stuff. And like I said, we can start to scale up and make things big with lots of trains. So until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.